Good day. This is your teacher Danny from Paliparan 3 Senior High School, Dasmariñas City, Cavite. Today we discuss about the methods of philosophizing. First, we have to define philosophizing. Philosophizing is to think and express oneself in a philosophical manner. In other words, it might be a question about life and existence of a person, or might be a concept in our mind or something, an experience in our life that we need to have an answer. In philosophizing, we have 6 methods. Number 1 is phenomenology. The number 2 is existentialism. And the number 3 is postmodernism. The number 4 is analytic tradition. The number 5 is logic and critical thinking. And the last one is fallacies. In phenomenology on consciousness, according to Edmund Husserl, he is the founder of phenomenology. This focuses on careful description of phenomena and appearances defined as an object or conscious experience, that is, that we are conscious of. The next one is existentialism. According to Soren Kierkegaard, the truth might be based on one's attitude or outlook. According to him, the authentic self as a personally chosen self as opposed to public or herd identity. In postmodernism or culture method, it has come in vogue as a name for the rather diffuse family or ideas and trends that is significant respect, rejects, challenges, or aim to supersede modernity. It is the best holding pattern, perhaps a cry for despair. This is according to Shield in 2012. In analytic tradition, the term analytic philosophy roughly designates a group of philosophical methods that stress detailed argumentation, attention to semantics, use of classical logic and non-classical logic, and clarity of meaning above all other criteria. In logic and critical thinking, serves as paths of freedom to have truths and deceptions. Critical thinking helps us uncover bias and prejudice and open a new ideas not necessarily in agreement with previous thoughts. We have 2 types of logic or critical thinking. The first one is the inductive or the observation method or types, and the second one is the deductive or the investigation. The last one is the fallacies. It says that defects an argument other than false premises, or to detect fallacies, it is required to examine the argument's content. Next stage is the abstraction. The question is, how do we use philosophy to figure out what is true? In today's society, we are often bombarded with a lot of information. Most of these are helpful, but there are some that seem to mislead us or even utterly false. Okay, one example is the endorser that holding a product of whitening. So maraming mga product ngayon naglabasan commercially or sometimes an online business that they are endorsing a product that give effects for a person who want to be handsome or beautiful. This kind of information often have a negative impact in our lives. People have been misled by claims of miracle drugs, which were eventually proven to have no and no significant effect in health. How do we know that they are telling the truth? So we have to define first what is truth. According to this, truth lies at the heart of any inquiry. Knowledge must be truthful to gain validity and acceptance, but the concept of truth remains a controversial in much discussed topic among philosophers. What is true or even a definition of truth is tricky concept in philosophy. Philosophers agree that there is no absolute measure of truth. The concept of truth, rooted in the ancient Greek philosophy concept of knowledge as justified, true, and belief. This concept states that something is true because you believe it is true, and there is justification for such belief. Number one theory that supplies the validity of truthfulness is the correspondence theory. It states that something is true if it is corresponds to reality or the actual states of affairs. This theory assumes a direct relationship between an idea and reality that can be taken as fact. Example of this, a mammal is an animal which is warm-blooded, has hair, and feed its young with milk is considered to be true. Another one is a dog barks. It is also true. Then another one is pigs can fly. However, it is false since in reality pigs do not have the capability to fly. The number two theory is the coherence theory. Propose that something is true if it makes sense when placed in a certain situation or context. So halimbawa dito yung baboy. So in some culture like Muslims, pig is considered unclean. But in reality, some Muslims eat bread in a shape of pig. So it makes sense in a context of Islamic faith. Another one is relativism. It is a philosophical concept which contends that there are no absolute truth. For example, is uh, Pope. The Pope says that abortion is acceptable practice for Catholics, but in reality, that is false. So that is relativism. Another one is the constructivist theory, holds that knowledge is shaped by social forces and influenced by culture and history. For example, the marriage. So this is reflected by laws and tradition. Betting someone half of your ship that you'll love them forever. So in marriage, actually, only the culture and tradition dictates to have marriage. But in some aspect, there are couples that they are not, they did not practice marriage, but the what do you call this live in or live in partners. Next is the consensus theory. Views knowledge as based on argument in that something is true if almost everyone agrees that is true. Number one example is the planet Pluto. So Pluto's classification into a dwarf planet or dwarf planet. So but during the past decades, Pluto is considered one of the planet. Next is the pragmatic theory. It says that holds the view that something is true if we can put it into practice or is useful in real life. It also believes that ideas should be continually treated to confirm their validity. A related jury verification considers that ideas must be verified using the sense of experience. There are other things that we have to consider in determining the truth. Determining the truth in any statement, ideas and claim are often presented in a form of arguments. These kind of arguments are called fallacies. Fallacies, for example, the ad hominem, appeal to force, appeal to emotion, appeal to popular, appeal to tradition, begging the question, cause and effect, fallacy of composition, and a fallacy of division. Actually, we have a separate discussion with regarding to different fallacies. One should also know the difference between fact and opinion. So first, we have to define what is facts. Are generally established truths, easily verified, and do not easily change from one situation to another. While opinion, on the other hand, are aware of bias or personal views of a person presenting it. Biases are not necessarily errors in reasoning, but refer to tendencies or influence which affect the view of people. Biases. We have different biases. Number one is correspondence bias or attribution effect. Number two is confirmation bias. Number three is framing. Four is hindsight. Number five is conflict of interest. And the last one is the cultural. First, we have to discuss first the correspondence bias or the attribution effects. It says that it is a tendency to judge a person's personality by his or her actions without regard to the external factors or influence. Example, these soldiers who fought in a war are all bloody-thirsty murderers. So this is a correspondence bias. Dahil dinajudge natin na yung mga sundalo na pumunta sa giyera o sa digmaan ay sila yung mga bloodthirsty murderer. Actually, they are not. They are performing only their duties as a soldiers. Next one is the confirmation bias. Tendency to look for and readily accept information which fits with one's own belief or views and to reject ideas or views that go against it. Example is, how can I accept his view that there is no God? I am a Christian. So, ang bias dito is yung pagiging Christian. So, there are some people who are not Christian. So, they don't believe in God. Or the atheists, for example, they don't believe in God. So, yun yung confirmation bias. We are looking only the views that rejects our ideas. Next one is framing. Focusing a certain aspect of a problem while ignoring other aspect. Example is preliminary evidences have still not pointed out to the actual cause of plane crash, but investigators are currently focusing on the possibility of pilot errors. So they're looking only on one side, yung pagiging yung error ng pilot. So wala silang ibang tinitingnan na aspect kung bakit nagkaroon ng plane crash. The next one is the hindsight. It is a tendency to see past events or predictable or to ascribe a pattern to historical events. So example of this is Magellan's assault on Mactan Island was a foolhardy venture made by an overconfident, careless man who underestimate the valor of the native Filipinos. So isa lang yung tinitingnan dito, yung katapangan ng mga Pilipinos, yung mga natives. So hindi tiningnan ni Magellan yung kaya yung assault nila, usually akala nila mananalo sila. Next is conflict of interest. A person or group is connected to or has a vested interest in the issue being discussed. Example, as the daughter of the accused, I believe I have the right to express my opinion on the issue of all alleged corrupt practices. So, kaya mayroon tayong tinatawag na conflict of interest. Pag halimbawa yung witness ay kamag-anak ng suspect, so natural, iba yung statement na ibibigay niya. Kasi nga, mayroong conflict of interest. The last one is the cultural bias. Analyzing an event or issue based on one's cultural standard. Now, an example of this is, I do not agree with the Western practice of placing aged parents to retirement homes. We Filipinos take care of our family members. So in Western countries, usually, yung mga magulang nila na matatanda na, nilalagay nila sa home for the aged. Pero sa Pilipino, hanggang sa pagtanda yon, inaalagaan ng mga close family or relatives. Okay, that's the end. And for our next